Well, it's official. Steve Angeli is headed to the transfer portal, and now the Notre Dame quarterback competition is down to two. It's CJ Carr versus Kenny Minchey, and only one will lead this team in 2025. That's next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up and welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast, and I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and today is Friday, April 18th. It's Good Friday, so happy Friday to you, and thanks for getting your day started right here by making this your first listen of the day. I really appreciate you tuning in today and every day, and if you have not already, be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any Notre Dame football coverage all year long. And the first big domino to fall in the Notre Dame quarterback competition happened on Thursday when it was reported that senior quarterback Steve Angeli will enter the transfer portal. 24/7 was the first to report, and today we're going to break down the impact of Steve Angeli's decision to transfer from Notre Dame. I'm going to start with why he left, where he might go, and what it means for the depth chart. Then we're going to dive into how this shapes the CJ Carr versus Kenny Minchey competition. And finally, we're going to zoom out a little bit and talk about what this means for Marcus Freeman, quarterback recruiting, and the pressure that is now on these two young quarterbacks to be the guy. But before we get to the other two guys, I really want to focus on Angeli for a bit, because this situation, even though it was a little bit predictable at the end, it's still a bummer because I really like Steve Angeli. He is an easy guy to root for. He loves Notre Dame, and he gave everything he had for years to this program to get the chance to be the starting quarterback. And unfortunately for him, it just didn't work out, but that happens. Ultimately, his decision reflects, the reality, the cold reality of modern college football, and honestly, the strength of Notre Dame's quarterback room. But still, there is a human element in all of this that sometimes gets lost, and it's been well reported that Angeli wanted to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame more than anything, even if it was just for one season. That's why he didn't run when Notre Dame went out and got Sam Hartman in the transfer portal in 2023. That's why he didn't run when they went out and got Riley Leonard to start over him in 2024. He was waiting for 2025, and this year was his best shot at it, and it just didn't work out. So my heart breaks for anyone who invests so much time and energy into something, and it just didn't work out. But even though it didn't work out at Notre Dame, I think Angeli is going to finish his career strong. He appeared in 21 games over 3 seasons. He completed 58 of 80 passes for 772 yards, 10 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. That's not a ton of volume, obviously, and he was playing a lot in garbage time, but it's really efficient work. And he made 1 career start back in 2023 for the Sun Bowl, and he played really well in that game. He finished 15 of 19 for 232 yards passing, had 3 touchdowns through the air, and he even added 27 yards on the ground. The kid flat out produced when he was given the chance, and his Orange Bowl moment cannot be overlooked either. That 2-minute drill right before halftime, where he stepped in for Riley Leonard and led a composed 13-play drive that ended up in points, that shifted the momentum of the game. Notre Dame probably does not beat Penn State in the college football playoff semifinals and go to the national championship if Steve Angeli did not come through for the Irish on that drive. He looked calm, he looked poised, and he looked confident more than anything, right? He was thrown into the fire, was not fazed at all, and led the team down the field. That is not garbage time. That was winning football in a really difficult situation. But I think we have to be honest with ourselves about that drive and the way that we talk about it. And I'm guilty of this as well. There was a play late in that drive. Steve Angeli had already driven them down the field for the most part, where he was not able to evade pressure and he fumbled the football. Abdul Carter, who was going to be a top 3 pick most likely in the upcoming NFL draft next week, was right there to pounce on it. But Carter was dealing with a very significant shoulder injury. He was still able to dominate in that game, but it was really the first glimpse into what he was dealing with because he was right there, but he literally could not lift his arm up far enough to grab the ball. So then Billy Schrouth was able to jump on it before Carter got there, and Notre Dame stayed alive on that drive. If Carter's shoulder was just a little bit healthier, or if he was maybe just a couple inches closer to the ball in that situation when that happened, he probably recovers the football. Notre Dame loses that game most likely. And the conversation around Angeli in that game is entirely different. He's no longer considered the savior. He's the guy that almost led the drive, but ultimately fumbled it away. And I'm not saying this to disparage Angeli, because the drive is still very impressive, right? He got them to that point to begin with, and then he bounced back after that play and set up the field goal. But we have to admit he made a pretty big mistake and got lucky. That happens. Still very impressive. And that was the defining moment of his career at Notre Dame and is a big reason why the Irish won that game. But I think when we have to really honestly evaluate all these quarterbacks, like that stuff does matter. Even though it's a game of inches and he got lucky in that scenario, we have to consider all the facts in this situation. But we get to the spring of 2025, and Angeli made it clear that he believed Notre Dame was where he was meant to be. He could have transferred after the season. He decided not to. He wanted to come back and compete for the starting job. He said all the right things. He carried himself the right way, and he competed. Like, he truly believed that he could start, and for good reason, right? He had waited his turn. Now is his time. He's a smart, steady quarterback. He's got good touch. He's accurate. He's got great leadership qualities. The team seems to really like him, and he can also make some plays with his legs too. Like, he's not great at avoiding pressure in the pocket, but we saw in the Sun Bowl, like, he can get out and he can run a little bit for sure. He also ran some against Purdue, but he's not the most physically gifted guy in the room, but he was talented enough to deserve a shot to lead this team. But Notre Dame had three guys who could compete, and Marcus Freeman said after the spring game, it was the most honest statement he made about the quarterback competition throughout the spring. He said he'd prefer if the quarterback competition were cut to two heading into summer and toward training camp. So after he said that, I think a lot of people perked up a little bit, and you're like, okay, he actually said it, right? Whoever came in third is probably going to be out the door. So it's not a huge surprise. This is what happened, considering just how impressive CJ Carr was in the spring game and throughout spring practice, and how impressive Kenny Minchey was all spring. Like, for as much as I like Steve Angeli, I think most rational fans who watch the three of them play see that Carr and Minchey are a little bit more talented and they have a higher ceiling. Plus, they have more eligibility, and all of this stuff factors in. Someone had to come in third. I've been saying that a lot. They're all good. They all deserve a shot, but somebody's going to come in third, and it looks like Angeli came in third. So now he's on the move. Where could he go, and how successful can he be? I think Steve Angeli should look at Tennessee now that Nico Iamaleava is gone. It seemed like he was headed to UCLA, but now that's still being finalized. What a disaster of a situation that is. But Tennessee only has two scholarship quarterbacks right now. They've got a freshman and a redshirt freshman with zero starting experience. I know they're going to look around for a more proven starter. I get it. They have college football playoff aspirations. They've been linked to the quarterbacks at Illinois, Baylor, and Iowa State. But if those don't work out, I think Angeli is perfect for that situation, because even though he doesn't have like a ton of playing experience, he's an adult that can come in that room and compete right away. I think he'd probably be better than those other two guys they have right now. And he is the type of personality that could fit in with that program and not make things weird. He's also capable of winning them football games, and I think he could be like a nice bridge player to get them to Merklinger, who's the redshirt freshman quarterback that they really like, or the top overall quarterback recruit that they got in the class of 2026, because Angeli has 2 more years left of eligibility. And if Tennessee isn't interested, I think Tulane makes sense. They've been one of the best group of 5 programs. They don't have a quarterback. So Angeli could more than likely start right away for Tulane and potentially lead them to a college football playoff berth because of the automatic bid that's given to the highest ranked group of 5 team. That's not out of the realm of possibility that Steve Angeli could be a starting quarterback in the college football playoff next year. Or if he wants to stay in the Power 4, I think Minnesota and Purdue are 2 Big Ten teams that really need a quarterback. They probably wouldn't be very good with or without Steve Angeli, right? Purdue was god-awful last year, and I know I've been making a lot of Purdue jokes on the show, but frankly, I don't think it's enough. They were just that bad last season, and maybe for Steve Angeli's health long-term, he decides, wait a second, I saw what happened to Purdue last year. I don't want to have anything to do with that. Also, Purdue plays at Notre Dame this year, so that would be really interesting, but it's an opportunity for him to start at a team who plays in one of the 2 major conferences. The thing is, though, no matter where he ends up, I think Angeli's time at Notre Dame is going to be remembered fondly. This is the epitome of a team-first guy. He was ready when his number was called, and he helped Notre Dame win a massive game in the college football playoff. And I think that's a legacy that he can be proud of. Like, it's not what he wanted, obviously. He wanted a full year as the starting quarterback, but considering how tough it is to navigate the quarterback landscape in college football, I think, he did a good job at Notre Dame. And he's going to go somewhere where he can compete for a starting job, most likely win it. And I'm genuinely rooting for the guy. Like, wherever he lands, that team is getting mature leader, and he knows how to win, and he knows how to handle pressure. But as for Notre Dame, this is the trade-off, right? Like, when you recruit at a high level, like Notre Dame has done with C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchey at quarterback, you're going to lose talented players who, frankly, could start elsewhere. Angeli is a perfect example of that. And now you're turning to two guys who have never started a college game. They've barely played college football. And even though I'm high on both players, that makes me a little nervous, not going to lie, especially when you consider the fact that Notre Dame opens up on the road against Miami in the season opener, and then they take on a Mike Elko-led Texas A&M defense in the home opener. Like, that is one hell of an introduction for either one of these guys when they become the starting quarterback. But that's why I thought Notre Dame would try to keep Steve Angeli around after the spring, but that's clearly not in their best interest. If Marcus Freeman was willing to roll with a true freshman at left tackle and a redshirt freshman at left guard last year on the offensive line going into that game against Texas A&M, it really shouldn't be that big of a surprise that he was willing to ride with a more talented player, whether it be C.J. Carr or Kenny Minchey, going into 2025. So yeah, I'm bummed to see Steve Angeli go because I do believe he's a good football player, but this is the cost of a competitive locker room, and you want to have enough talented guys that want to compete, but sometimes the timing just doesn't work out. Angeli gave Notre Dame everything he had, and now he gets a fresh start, and I'm going to be tuning in and rooting for him wherever he ends up. But with Angeli out the door, the pressure ramps up for C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchey. So let's talk about where things stand for both of these young quarterbacks and who will take the first snaps against Miami in the season opener. That's next. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney+, Max, and more. Fire TV Stick 4K has endless entertainment options, whether you're a hardcore gamer or just like watching shows and movies. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Now that Notre Dame's quarterback battle is officially a two-man race between C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchey, I am fired up about it because this is a legit high-end quarterback competition between two supremely talented players who bring different things to the table, and no matter who wins it, I think Notre Dame is going to be in a great spot for the future. You've got C.J. Carr, who's like the former high four, borderline five-star recruit with a historic pedigree, right? His whole family went to Michigan. His grandpa is Lloyd Carr, won a national championship with the Wolverines. Now he's playing for the opposition. He's playing for the rival at Notre Dame. And then you've got Kenny Minchey, who's the smooth operator who has flat out played his way into the competition this spring. He performed better than a lot of people, myself included, expected. I would even say that he performed better than people inside the Goog thought he would play. I'm talking coaches, staff, players, everyone in the Goog, right? I've talked about this before. But when you read the tea leaves and if you really paid attention to what people in the local and even the national college football media were saying about the Notre Dame quarterback competition, it became pretty clear that all of these people and all of their sources inside the Goog thought it would be a two-man race between Steve Angeli and C.J. Carr. I did a national show a couple weeks ago, right? I'm not going to say the name, but before I got on, the guy was asking me about, what we're going to talk about. And he's like, yeah, we're going to talk about Steve Angeli and C.J. Carr and how it's a two-man quarterback competition. I'm like, no, there is a third guy, and he has a realistic chance at winning the job. And I explained Kenny Minchey and the backstory there. But let me be clear about this, okay? I was wrong about Kenny Minchey. I was. I was absolutely wrong about Kenny Minchey in this quarterback competition. Heading into the spring, I thought he would compete for the job. I thought he'd have a legit chance to be the starter. So I was higher on him than most, but I didn't think he would get to this point. I figured it would be Steve Angeli starting for at least the first couple of games, right? Considering Notre Dame's playing on the road at Miami, and then they got Texas A&M. I thought Marcus Freeman would side with the more experienced quarterback, even though he doesn't have a ton of playing experience, the guy who's been around who's actually played on Saturdays. I thought he'd go with Angeli and then maybe switch to Carr later on in the season, kind of like what Clemson did a few years ago back in, 2018, when they had Bryant as a starter, Kelly Bryant, and then they switched to Trevor Lawrence, who's a true freshman at the time. I thought we'd see something similar with Angeli and Carr, and I thought that Minchey was really talented. He'd compete hard for the job, but I figured he would finish third and potentially transfer out. Well, that didn't happen. Kenny proved me and a lot of people wrong, and I give him all the credit in the world for that because he bet on himself. He could have left after the season ended in the winter portal cycle, but he didn't, and it's gotten him this far. So I give him a ton of credit. And what stood out to me about Kenny Minchey and what he did this spring was his poise and his mobility. Like he's always had a nice release. We've already talked about that with Kenny Minchey. He throws a really pretty ball. He's accurate, and he can make plays with his feet. But, he thinks he's as good of a runner as Riley Leonard, which I don't think that's the case because Riley has him by a few inches and several pounds. Like Riley was built like a defensive end who was really fast and could jump higher than a lot of dudes, maybe even at the NBA Combine. But Minchey is just so smooth with the read option. Like, no matter what happens with this quarterback competition, they need to get Minchey out there in some run packages this fall because he is just that good with it. Like, he's just got a really nice maneuver that fakes out the defense. It faked out the cameraman a couple times during the spring game. So he certainly brings that dimension to the table. He is also improved with his decision-making, which is something that I questioned coming into spring, and he even admitted during his time with the media that decision-making has been a flaw of his in the past, but he believes he has improved significantly in that area. Sometimes he'll still fall into that trap of making a bad decision, like the interception he had in the Jersey scrimmage. It sounded like it was really bad, but he is getting a lot better in that area. And this spring, he showed like he's not just there to fill out the room. He is there to win the job, and I think you've got to give a ton of credit to him. And also Gino Guidugli, the quarterback's coach, who honestly should get more credit for what he's done with this team since he joined the staff a few years ago once Marcus Freeman was hired, because he has helped Kenny Minchey get to this point. He always had ability, but he was a little bit raw, but I think that Gino has fine-tuned him, and now, going into his third year with the program, he has made this competition real. Now, despite all that, and again, major respect to Kenny, I still believe CJ Carr is the front runner to be the next starting quarterback at Notre Dame. Does that mean he's guaranteed to win the job? No. Kenny is absolutely capable of becoming quarterback one. And if Minchey is a guy who goes out there with the first team offense when Notre Dame takes on Miami in late August, it would not surprise me in the slightest. But as we sit here today, on the morning of Friday, April 18th, I think CJ Carr is going to win a close race against Kenny Minchey. That is just my prediction. I think when you compare the two, Carr has just a different level of arm talent and field vision. I think he's more accurate. He's a better decision maker, and he has shown the ability to read defenses at a really high level for someone who's only going to be a sophomore next year. Also, he's vocal, he's confident, and based on what we saw from him when he was a recruit and the way that he just took over as the leader of that recruiting class, I think he has great leadership potential, and you hear about that from the guys in the locker room. And I remember Riley Leonard, when he was talking to the media before this past season, and I think it was in the fall, they were asking him, like, how does CJ Carr compare to you as a freshman? And he was like, it's not even close. CJ Carr was so far ahead of where I was, speaking of Riley Leonard, that it's not even comparable. So I think that kind of shows you where CJ Carr is at in his development relative to other freshman quarterbacks who ended up being supremely talented in college. Now, is he perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, he's barely played college football. He missed practically all of last fall with an elbow injury. And meanwhile, Kenny Minchey has been around the program for 3 years now. He hasn't played much on Saturdays, but he has had way more reps in practice than CJ has. They've had the same amount of reps with Mike Denbrock as the offensive coordinator, but Kenny Minchey was around this whole fall while CJ Carr was out mending his elbow injury, and I think that helped out Minchey, and he helped get him to this point. Plus, he had that whole year before. He was an early enrollee freshman, even though he's playing under Jared Parker. Like, all that stuff matters, and it's pretty clear Minchey is a better runner than CJ Carr is, even though Carr can certainly move the pocket, and he could probably keep the ball in a read option as well. And we know how much Mike Denbrock likes to run the ball with his quarterback. So I think if you're Notre Dame, you really pitch an option package for Minchey this fall if he's considering transferring at all, which, could happen, right? It's the time of this recording, he's not in the transfer portal. I would be surprised if he did enter, but Notre Dame is probably going to have to adjust his compensation package and, tell him that he has a real shot to win this job and say, hey, no matter what happens, you're going to have some playing time this fall, because he should, right? When Notre Dame gets in the red zone, you put like Kenny Minchey in at quarterback with Jeremiah Love and maybe even Jadarian Price in the backfield, and they're running read option. Like, good luck for the defense trying to figure out who has the ball and then trying to make the tackle. But I do get nervous as we turn back to CJ Carr here about young quarterbacks who start too early and it ends up shaking their confidence. Like, look at Drew Aller. I've used this example before. 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He was supposed to be the quarterback that was the difference maker at Penn State. Like, they had a good team for years, but they never really had a true difference maker at the quarterback position. Then they get Drew Aller, who sits his freshman year, becomes a starter as a redshirt freshman, and he was mediocre that first year at best, and he was awful in their big games against Michigan and Ohio State. He got better in his third year, but as we saw, not that much better, right? And then you've got Nico Iamaleava, who's a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Tennessee paid a lot of money to get him. He sat out his first year, then comes in as a redshirt freshman, and he was violently average against every good team in the SEC, and look how that wound up. He's now headed to UCLA, most likely. Those are two guys with a ton of potential, very little experience, who came in and started as redshirt freshmen, and it just didn't work out. That could happen to Carr. I don't think it will, but we have to accept the reality that it could. Or CJ Carr could be like CJ Stroud, who also sat out his freshman season, and then he threw for 44 touchdowns and 6 interceptions as a redshirt freshman in his first season as the starter. Or CJ Carr could be like Bryce Young, who sat behind Mac Jones his freshman year. Then he came in as a redshirt freshman, threw for 47 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and won the Heisman Trophy. The answer for CJ Carr, if he ends up winning the job, is probably somewhere in between, but that is the risk you take when you pick the young quarterback who has a ton of upside. So now here's the key. The competition is just beginning. In fact, it might really be entering the most important phase this summer, because this is where the job gets won. It's the player-led workouts. It's the 7-on-7 sessions. It's throwing with guys outside of practice, just on your own. It's being the first guy in the film room, being the first guy out. And most importantly, it's who the team rallies behind, because neither guy's going to win this job just by throwing the ball well when they're in shorts. And it's kind of become a cliche for college football coaches and even players that, like, championships are won in the summer, but it's true. They are won when nobody is watching, when it's just you on campus in the summer. There's no other students really around other than a couple other athletes. There's no transfer portal to think about or worry about. All you have to do, work out, take like 3 credits in summer classes, and work on your game to prepare for the upcoming season. That is when champions are made, and in this case, that is where position battles are won. So CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey are going to have to show they have command of the offense. They're going to have to build trust with the receivers, and they're going to have to earn the respect of their teammates over the course of these next few months. And whoever shows that they can elevate the players around them this summer is going to have the edge going to fall camp. And I think whoever has the edge going to fall camp is probably going to win that job. But no matter who wins this quarterback battle between CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey, it is absolutely going to shape the future of this program. So how important is this decision for Marcus Freeman and his program? That's coming right up. So as we take a step back here, we look at the fallout from Steve Angeli's decision to transfer. We look at what Notre Dame has in the quarterback room right now, in the future of this room in this program. They are in a great spot so long as things stay the way they are. They have got 2 young, extremely talented quarterbacks who are pushing each other. But Notre Dame has to make sure that they can keep both of them in the room for this fall. Like I said, the transfer portal, it's still open for another week. So theoretically, one of either CJ Carr or Kenny Minchey could still transfer between now and then. I would be pretty surprised if that happened, but I guess it wouldn't be a complete stunner given the nature of college football and guys leave all the time. But this is the kind of internal competition you want in a healthy program. And no matter who ultimately wins out, like, they are going to be better because they had to earn it. And I think that's the attitude that both of these guys are going to take in this competition, because I don't think anyone in that room expected the job to be handed to them. And Kenny Minchey has already proven a bunch of people wrong. That's why I think what he's done is just so impressive, because he had been counted out by so many people. And I'm sure that, like, even though these guys say that they only focus on themselves, they don't read, what's being said about them, they look at the noise and all that stuff, like, that's not reality. And I'm sure that Kenny Minchey saw all the people talking about how this is just a two-man race, and he took that personally and got himself to this point. And now he's going to have to beat out CJ Carr, who a lot of people, like myself, think is going to win this job. And I think that kind of stuff motivates him, and I think Carr is going to be extremely motivated as well. So it's really a good place to be for Notre Dame that they have these two guys competing and going at it. So yeah, I might have been wrong about Kenny Minchey, but I'm happy to be wrong, because it means the future of this room is even brighter than I thought. Even though I thought Steve Angeli would start this year, I felt like it was a bridge, right? I didn't really look at him as the long-term future. But if Kenny Minchey just flat out beats CJ Carr, then, he has multiple years of eligibility left. Like, he could be around for a long time. He could continue to build and develop at Notre Dame. I still lean towards CJ Carr being that guy, but now it's just a question of which one of these guys can lead Notre Dame to the heights expected of this team in 2025, because the coaching staff clearly believes they're both capable of doing it, or else they would not have put themselves in this position. And Marcus Freeman has gotten burned by this in the past, right? Back in 2022, his first season as head coach of Notre Dame, they could have gone out in the transfer portal and gotten someone who has at least played college football before, but they didn't do it. They were like, we're going to roll with Tyler Buckner, who had not started before. Well, he ends up getting hurt in the second game of the season, misses the rest of the year, but at that point, they were already 0-2. Like, they were going to lose that game against Marshall. And Marcus Freeman looked at that situation and thought, never again. So they started recruiting quarterback a lot better at the high school level, but they also went out, they got Sam Hartman in 2023, and they got Riley Leonard in 2024. Two proven, accomplished quarterbacks who could come in and start right away. He could have done it again this year. There were options out there, but he elected to go with the guys he had in that room, and now he's electing to go with the youngest guys who have the least amount of experience. So there is a lot of pressure on Marcus Freeman and the staff to get this right. Like, even though I believe Marcus Freeman had the final say, I'm sure Gino Guidugli had a lot of input as well, because he's with these guys every single day in practice and meetings, and he's probably with them more than he's with his own family. So he knows everything about these guys as quarterbacks in college football. Mike Denbrock obviously has a say as the offensive coordinator and how he wants his offense to be run and who is best suited to do that. So there's a lot of pressure on these coaches to get this right, because the team has really high expectations. Again, they're coming off a run to the national championship. They have a bunch of talent coming back, a lot of young guys, and I think everyone expects this team to be back in the college football playoff. Jeremiah Love is gone after this year, and he might be the best Notre Dame running back of all time. He could have like one of the best seasons ever if he's able to stay healthy this entire season. Malachi Fields, the transfer they got from Virginia, who is already on some watch list for like the best wide receivers in all of college football. He's one and done. So you never know what can happen after this season. So they need to get it right this year, and whoever wins the job can then come back next year and build on it. Notre Dame has not had a multi-year starter in a really long time. The last quarterback at Notre Dame to start in back-to-back years was Ian Book, all right? So it's been a minute. And if they pick the wrong guy and this doesn't work out and this whole situation ends up flaming out, like, the domino effect there could get really ugly. I don't think that's going to happen, but this is the risk that you run when you go with the young, inexperienced quarterback. So they have no veteran fallback for this option now that Steve Angeli is out the door. The staff is all in on youth. They've got Kenny Minchey, who's going to be a redshirt sophomore, then his Carr, who's a redshirt freshman, who basically missed all of last season, and then Blake Hebert, who just joined campus a few weeks ago as the early enrollee freshman. This could be a huge selling point, though, for Notre Dame down the road, because when you look at how Notre Dame has recruited a quarterback, it is obviously improved with Minchey and Carr, Hebert. They've got Noah Grubbs, 4-star in the class of 2026. They have really struggled to develop quarterbacks in-house for like the past decade, and that has hurt them on the recruiting trail. Like, other programs use that against Notre Dame. They say, why would you go to Notre Dame? They can't even develop their own guys. That's why they have to go out to the portal every single year. Well, if CJ Carr or Kenny Minchey can shine this year, That's going to help Notre Dame land that elite 5-star talent in the future that they have not been able to get. Like CJ Carr was close. I think he was the 6th rated quarterback in the class, but they could be getting more 5 stars than they have in the past. Not to mention the fact that Notre Dame's lack of an explosive passing game has also hurt them at recruiting wide receivers. That can all change too if CJ Carr or Kenny Minchey, they come in and they light the world on fire and they're passing the ball all over the yard, and then Jane Greathouse and Jordan Faison and these guys are lighting up the stat sheet. They end up getting drafted. Then you're looking at more talented high school wide receivers who are then going to give more consideration to Notre Dame than they otherwise would have in the past, because Notre Dame's passing game just hasn't been that good. I loved Riley Leonard, and it was a joy to watch him play in the blue and gold, but Mike Denbrock even said after the year they had no faith in the passing game at all last season. So that's got to change. I think it's going to change this year with Kenny Minchey or CJ Carr, and this is going to be a really fun competition. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I can already tell the fan base is going to be a little split on this. It's going to certainly lead to some toxicity in the comment section, but it's all part of it. One thing I am absolutely certain of is that these fans want Notre Dame to win more than anything, and that is what I want too. But overall, Steve Angeli's departure officially put the pressure on CJ Carr, Kenny Minchey, and it raises the stakes for Marcus Freeman and his staff to get it right at the game's most important position. All right, that is going to do it for this episode, and that is another week of Locked On Irish in the books. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day and for tuning in all week long. For your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL Draft to get you ready for next week, and I'm going to be back early next week with more transfer portal coverage, plus Notre Dame is set to wrap up spring practice next Wednesday, I believe, so I'll have more on that as well. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube or wherever you are listening to the podcast. And if you enjoyed the show today, remember, you can help us out a great deal by giving this video a like if you're watching along on YouTube. Make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube. We're getting close to 10K. Or if you're listening to the podcast, please rate the show 5 stars and leave a review. That kind of stuff goes a really, really long way, and I appreciate it. I want you to have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.